Tonight on That's Dark.
The Zodiac Killer. Join us as we explore the terror that gripped California in the late 1960s and early 70s, decode the cryptic messages, and examine the enduring mystery that continues to baffle investigators and intrigue the public. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
It's Alyssa.
And Heather.
And we are going to be talking about the Zodiac Killer today.
Yeah.
He's an interesting one, honestly. I mean, they all are.
I don't actually know a ton about him. Like, I realize that there's some really infamous ones, like we did Ted Bundy. That was like, I know Ted Bundy, of course, but I didn't know so much about him until you covered him, which go back and listen to that, guys.
Oh my God,
if you haven't.
please.
It's so good.
It's just like insane.
It is.
This one's just weird to me, and you'll see why. I want to see at the end if you see why I find it so strange.
Okay.
Remind me, because I feel like I'm going to forget at the end to ask you, but remind me.
It's interesting. Did they ever, I meant to ask you, I didn't look into anything. Whenever you're going to do a subject that I don't know anything really about, I just don't. But I wasn't, this is not the same person that's Son of Sam, is it? No. Okay. Because I know they made a movie about Son of Sam, and for some reason...
There's a movie of both. There's a Zodiac Killer one.
One? Okay. And I was like, is this the Son of Sam? Because I know somewhat of the story of Son of Sam, but I don't know... Well, that means I know nothing.
I don't know.
Zodiac Killer.
I don't think I really know a whole lot about Son of Sam. I've heard of him, but I don't know a whole lot.
Well, I'm covering the requested one already. Yes. And then I think I'll take on Son of Sam because it's very interesting. It has a lot to do with mental health, too.
Oh, okay.
A lot.
Love that.
I mean, I'm sure all serial killers have to do with that.
Right.
But But yeah.
For this one, normally I kind of like to start with like a background of the person, and we don't have a person. So
I'm going to have that with one of mine, too.
Okay.
Not this guy that I'm doing, but I do want to do the Boston Strangler.
Oh my God, yes.
Kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, no.
Yeah.
So, but let's talk just a little bit of chit chat.
It's been a week. Oh my.
Universes.
Wow. And it's for everyone. Every single person I know.
I mean, usually it's like, Mercury in retrograde. That's like not the case. Mm-mm. It is just the lining of everything. Like they're like
a lot of water, a lot of water signs going around.
Yeah, but I also think there's just like the universe is shaking it up.
Yes.
Like they're like, you're gonna
change.
You're gonna need to change.
Self-improvement. And I don't think the full moon in Cancer on Saturday helped a whole lot. If you ask me, it's been enough of the water energy for me.
Yeah, I can't. I think maybe because I'm very much a fire sign. Mm-hmm. I'm like, please just get out of here without.
I'm a fire sign. We're both Sagittariuses.
Yeah.
But I identify as an air sign the most because I am a little bit of an airhead.
What's Virgo?
That's Earth.
Oh, yeah. See? Yeah.
Yep. That's you.
Yeah.
You're just straight to business.
I am. Straight to business and very feisty about it.
And I'm just like, ooh, in the clouds. So, and I have a Gemini moon. Okay, this is not going to be a whole astrology
You're like,
podcast.
I have a... No.
I'm just in a chat mood. Like chatty chat. Like I just want to... I can't even speak. I just want to like rant and chat.
A lot of self-discovery this year, almost a year, because it felt like a year.
Like
a lot of like self-reflection and self-discovery and like learning things about yourself and not wanting to learn things about yourself. But I have to say, usually I fight things. Mm-hmm. I'm not.
No.
I'm just letting it happen. Yeah. Like, and I've definitely found some strength in that, that I have not been fighting it. Yes. I'm like, cool, let's just dive in. Like, I usually am like, no,
Well, sometimes when you dig your heels in more, it's more annoyance. It's more annoyance.
And it feels like this time doesn't feel like it's going to let anything pass. Okay. Like, it's not going to be like, oh, you get a pass, Heather. Mm-mm.
No, it's not. The universe will not be kind currently. No. So, gotta love that.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But my goal, like I said earlier, is that I would love my vision, of course, is our pod always. Mm-hmm. And then I want to bake bread, wear flowy dresses, and water my plants.
I would love that.
And pet my cats and my animals, my dogs, my bunny. Like that's all I want to do in life. Research my pod and bake bread and take care of things and be wispy.
Mm-hmm. All right. So like I said, typically with what I do, I like to do a little background on the person. But since we have no person, we're just getting right into it.
So he was never caught?
No. No.
See, I literally know nothing.
Yeah. There have been a lot of like speculations of who it could be. Nobody for sure, though. All right. So we're just getting right into the murders.
Okay.
All right. So the Zodiac Killer began in the 60s, December 20th of 1968. 16-year-old Betty Lou Jensen and 17-year-old David Faraday. Sorry, I pronounced that wrong.
16 and 17?
Mm-hmm. They were on their first date in Benicia, California, which is just an hour outside of San Francisco.
Benicia?
Benicia.
Bunny. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
David picked up Betty Lou in his 1961 Rambler station wagon, and by 11 p.m., they were parked along a small pump station along Lake Herman Road, an area that teenagers would park at and was referred to as Lover's Lane.
Always.
Yeah.
Makeout Hill, Lover's Lane.
Then around 11:20 that night, a young woman named Stella Gorgeous, which...
What?
Yes.
Stella Gorgeous?
Yes, Stella Gorgeous.
Get it, girl. My God.
Best name ever.
Yes.
She was a young mother and headed out to pick up her son from the show, and also had her mother and her daughter in the car with her. And they drove past Lover's Lane as she turned onto Lake Herman Road. Now, this is where it got a little bit confusing. It said around 11:20 that night, but then it goes to her passing Lake Herman Road around 11:10. So I'm thinking 11:20 is when she must have called in.
Yeah.
I think that's what happened. So that's why there's like a weird time. So around 11:10 p.m., she spotted David's Rambler station wagon parked outside. However, the driver door was wide open and a man was hanging out of the car bleeding profusely. The vehicle itself had blood all over it, and then she noticed a young woman lying on the ground just a few feet away from the road. So you could tell by this that she was trying to run away from it, which is awful. So it's the 60s. There's no cell phones, you know. Yeah. So her best option was to drive to the nearest police station. And on her way there, she flags down another police officer and tells him about what she just saw. Officers arrive at the scene at 11:28. Now, this is like quick. You got to think like...
That's quick. That's really quick. But I'm also glad she didn't like go and investigate or stop. Yeah. Just because like...
Oh, God, I know.
That was really smart of her.
He could have been lurking around. He more than likely was. Like, you got to think she was passing there at 11:10. They parked at 11. Like, this was like...
Oh, my God.
Quick. So 11:28, the officers arrive at the scene.
That's
and when
so
they
fast.
I know. When they did, they found Betty Lou lying on the ground 28 feet from the station wagon. It turned out she'd been shot 5 times in her heart, her liver, and her right kidney. And unfortunately, by the time they arrived, she had no pulse. Yeah. David was lying face up, hanging out of the station wagon. However, he was still alive, but barely. Officers hoped that if they got the ambulance there really quick and got him to the hospital, that maybe they could save his life, and he could answer some of the crucial questions of like who could have done this. But this is not what happened. David had been shot in the head and had died before even getting to the hospital. Yeah.
The fact that he was shot in the head and like wasn't dead instantly, that's just, oh my gosh.
Was
it that the only thing, just shot in the head? Why she was shot? Probably because she was running. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
So I'm going to ask you, because this is going to be like kind of a common theme. There's one that's outside of shooting, but do you find that weird?
Like for a serial killer?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So I was like talking to Andrew about
it's not
this.
Personal enough.
Right. And my thing is like, obviously, all serial killers are messed up in the head.
Yeah.
But, like, I can kind of see when there's a motive. Like, with Ted Bundy, you know why. There's a sexual motive. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
He's trying to get something. And I just find it so eerie when people have no specific target and no, like...
You can't really piece together why.
It's like, why?
Because that is true. Like, typically, serial killers don't use guns because it's a personal thing. They want that connection.
Yeah.
And a gun is not a connection.
No.
That's crazy.
So that's what I find strange about this one. Well, there's a million other reasons why too, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
Investigators on the scene determined that someone had shot him and Betty Lou through the station wagon windows. They believed it was another person in the vehicle that they had pulled up right next to them and just started shooting.
What?
The station wagon had bullet holes on the right side and back window and on the roof. While searching the scene, they found shell casings and determined that the killer had used a .22 caliber gun with Winchester Western Super X ammunition. They also believe that the gun was a J.C. Higgins Model 80 semi-automatic pistol. I don't know what any of that stuff is.
Nope.
But if you're a gun enthusiast,
I'm not a gun person.
That's what it is.
There was that guy, but he had a motive. He was like in the military. Remember that was shooting people at gas stations.
Yeah.
I mean, you would consider him a serial killer essentially, but
that's true.
But I think it's just like hard to categorize that.
It is
because it's, again, I forget what his thing was, but it was just so he was sniping them.
Yeah,
and that kind of went along with his military, but like not knowing, it just seems so like what connection do you get just pulling up and shooting them on this? That's so weird.
Yeah. This was actually the first time that there were murders in Benicia for 5 years. Wow. So the local police there had no idea how to handle this situation. So that's great. They interviewed a ton of friends and family members of David and Betty Lou's, and at first they thought it could have been Betty Lou's ex-boyfriend, but they were able to rule him out pretty quickly because he had a rock-solid alibi. Betty Lou's friend Sharon had seen the two of them that night around 9 p.m. When she says the two, she means Betty Lou and David. And she saw the two of them around 9 p.m. But she wasn't aware that they had plans to drive to Lake Herman Road. Another witness, James Owen, said he had driven by the pump station at 11:14 and he saw their station wagon with two people inside. But he also saw a mid-sized dark car pulled up alongside of it. But when Stella, the woman who had gotten the attention of the police, had originally pulled up on the scene around 11:20, it was just their station wagon, and the two of them had already been shot. So now I'm confused.
Yeah,
with the timing.
I'm so confused by that.
The confirmed that we know is 11:14. This is when James Owen saw them alive. She must have come by 11:20. I don't know where 11:10 came in, but discard 11:10. Okay. That doesn't make sense.
But literally 11:14, and then
11:20 she comes around. They're dead.
That's what I'm saying.
That's like, a quick turnaround. So then she gets out of there, goes to the police station, but on her way to the police station sees a cop there and tells him. So by 11:28,
I'm going to make it more confusing.
Yes, go ahead.
If he pulls up on, it was on the driver's side, or was it passenger side?
Right next to them and started shooting. The station wagon had bullet holes on the right side and back window and on the roof. So I don't know if they're meaning if you're looking at the car, it's on the right side. I'm assuming they're meaning of the car itself, the right side. So that would be passenger side.
Yeah, so that's where I was trying to figure out, because what prompted her to get out and run? You know what I'm saying? Like, where was she running to? Because like that's, if someone's just shooting at you.
Right. Especially if they're on her side. Yeah.
Like that, that's just interesting to me. So it's such some food for thought. Like the fact that she was outside. I think maybe what I think is she was alive, opened up, he's already gone. She's trying to walk somewhere to get help and then just dies because that's a lot of damage. Because none was in her heart, right?
No, it wasn't her heart. It was her
heart. No, I don't even know.
It was her heart, her liver, and her right kidney.
Yeah, so what? That's very confusing to me.
Again, this is all because nobody is alive, even though David was alive.
I know,
he was like, he couldn't really speak. So like, this is all just based off of what police saw, what they're assuming.
But the time, that's what got me. 11:14 and then 11:20.
I really think 11:10 is like a mistake.
No, I mean the 11:14. The guy seeing at 11:14 that someone was pulled up there, and then 11:20. That's 6 minutes.
But also, like, if you're shooting people, it's not that hard.
But if a girl's getting out of the car,
right? But still, if you just shoot
I guess that's true.
That could be easily done.
I guess you're not thinking either. I don't know. It just kind of stuck out to me as weird.
Yeah.
But
sorry for that detour, guys.
Sorry, guys. Continue with the book, of course.
No, I like that because it's good to
suss it out a little bit, just because this is it's unsolved.
Yeah. And again, it's like, this isn't solid, like 100% what happened. I mean, it's what they saw, but these are what the cops are assuming. Why else would she be like 28 feet away? You know what I mean? So it's good to question this stuff. One of the big questions that they were trying to answer were, what were David and Betty Lou's plans for the night, and did they tell anyone about these plans? Was it possible for someone to stalk them and know that they were going to be there? Was this predetermined, or was this a random act of violence? And it seemed to be a random act of violence. So wait, that's what I want to talk about, with how quickly this happened. Like, they pulled up at 11, right? And again, this could be completely off because they're not here to say it. But based off of like people seeing them and the times, it said that 11 p.m. So I think for someone to have murdered someone within 20 minutes, they had to have known. They had to have been following, maybe, is like, would be my thought. Or just happen to be right place, right time. But I don't know. They're thinking it's a random act of violence, which I think it's a random act of violence, but also, I don't know. It's like hard. Like, that's just a really quick time.
That is a very...
And was he just sitting there? Was he just sitting at Lover's Lane? I mean, it would make sense.
Could be.
Yeah. Because, like, if you know that this is a notorious place that teenagers go, like, you're going to hang out and wait.
That was such a big thing back then, all the way up until the 90s. I don't think there's any notorious places anymore. No. Thank God. But that could definitely be that whoever is wanting to commit.
Yeah.
Like, I know I'll get some couples here or whatever. Now I'll get some people sitting
true.
ducks.
Yeah.
Because they're too busy making out. You know what I'm saying? To really notice.
Yes. So I think that makes the most sense. There's this infamous picture of Betty Lou's body that was put out by the newspaper the next day. And it was she was covered with a blanket, but you could see pools of blood around her. And you could see where she was like going this way away from the car. And it's just sad.
That is sad.
People were terrified that this was going to happen every night, or was this person stalking their community? But for the next 6 months, things got quiet. Again, that weirds me out. When killers take 6-month hiatuses, like, it's just weird to me. But just as people were starting to get comfortable again, like I said, 6 months later, Zodiac Killer struck again. July 4th of 1968 in Vallejo, California, Darlene Theron was 22 at the time, and she left her home in her brown Chevrolet Corvair around 11:30 p.m. to pick up 19-year-old Michael Meju, and the two of them drove to Blue Rock Springs Park, which is another well-known lover's lane. They were just sitting there talking and enjoying their night when someone pulled up behind them, and it was only for about a minute, and then they left. Another 5 minutes goes by, and suddenly the car pulls up again. And this time, someone gets out with a really bright flashlight and starts walking towards them. He walked right up to their passenger side of Darlene's car and shined his flashlight right in at them, and then started shooting.
Oh my God.
Michael jumped into the back seat to avoid the shots while Darlene just kept getting shot at.
Oh.
When he was finished, he started walking back towards the car and suddenly heard Michael scream in pain, and then he went back to finish the job. He shot them both again an additional 2 times and then quietly walked back and got into his car and left the scene. Multiple people in the area could hear the gunshots from their home and called the police. Officers arrived at the scene at 12:10 a.m. These cops are on it.
Yeah,
they say that.
Holy crap.
And when they got to the Corvair, it was parked close to the road, and it's really eerie how it was found. The headlights were on, the turn signal was on, and the music was still playing. and Darlene was slumped over the steering wheel. And she was actually still alive at this point, but barely. And she'd been shot twice in her arm and once in her side, while Michael had been shot in the jaw and in the shoulder and his leg. But surprisingly, he's still alive and aware of what's going on. He told the officers at the scene that the shooter was a white man in a brown car. He was in horrible condition, so he couldn't give them much more detail than that.
Jaw shot.
Yeah. And then they rushed him to the hospital as quickly as possible. Darlene, unfortunately, didn't make it to the hospital. She was pronounced dead on the way there. Police determined that whoever did this had used a 9mm Luger pistol. And at first, despite there being so many similar circumstances to the shooting that had occurred on Lake Herman Road, no one connected the two at first. But that changed very quickly. At 12:40 a.m., someone called the police and confessed to being the one who committed the murders.
Wait, what?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Remember.
Already?
Cops get there at 12:30. Yep. And Michael is alive. He's still alive to this day. He made it. He survived.
I was waiting. I was
Darlene,
about Michael. I know.
Darlene didn't. So then 12:40, just 10 minutes after, someone called the police and confessed to being the one who committed the murders that night, and also said they committed the murders on Lake Herman Road.
And they weren't connecting him yet.
No.
So this person just fessed up and said, yeah, I did this. But they don't tell who they are. Crazy.
Mm-hmm. The call was not recorded, but this is what it was reported he said. This is a quote. "I want to report a murder. If you will go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway, you will find kids in a brown car, and they were shot with a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye." That's it.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And you can hear, like, there's videos of the 911 dispatcher who got this call. She, like, talks about it, and that's how we have this, like, because it wasn't recorded at that time, but she, like, recounts it, and she said he sounded just flat. Like, there's just, like, no emotions, and that freaks me out. So the police ended up tracing the call back to a payphone and a phone booth outside of the gas station, but by the time they got there, obviously, the caller was not there anymore. It became clear very quickly to the police that they were dealing with a thrill killer. Someone whose only motive is to cause terror and pain and to scare their victims and also the public. Yep.
A thrill killer.
Yep. Yeah.
Interesting.
That's what I find so fascinating about this, is, like, that's just... I guess...
That's what they get from it.
Yeah. It's just knowing that people fear them. And you'll see that a lot. This is a common theme of his. He wants to be respected. He likes to call in his murders and, you know.
He wants that connection.
Yeah.
He wants, I mean, he's not taking anything from it. You know, like, you know how they usually take little mementos? Yes. Like, he's not. So he's got to have some type of a, oh, okay. I'll
maybe. It kind of makes me think a little bit of Jack the Ripper with the notes that he sends in. Yeah. Like the calls. So, like,
I mean, Jack the Ripper did take body parts with him.
He didn't take parts, but there were parts he sent. You'll see. There's
okay.
Luckily, Michael was able to have multiple surgeries, was able to survive the attack. Over the time, he described the killer in more detail. And he said it was a young white man, about 25 to 30 years old, with curly light brown hair and about 200 pounds and 5 feet 8 inches tall. Just a few weeks after the second shooting, strange letters started coming into the local newspaper at Vallejo Times, Herald, and San Francisco Chronicle, and the San Francisco Examiner. All received letters, supposedly from the killer, on August 1st. Each of these letters included some type of coded message or cipher, and it seemed that once these codes were cracked, that they might reveal the identity of the killer. The person who wrote these also demanded that they were published, and he said if they were not published, more people would be killed. So they obviously complied with him. A second letter arrived at the San Francisco Examiner on August 4th, and in this letter, the killer identified for the first time as the Zodiac. Why the Zodiac? There's quite honestly, I mean, he, aside from his little symbol that he puts on himself, I don't know, but also I heard something that he wanted to kill 12 people. And I'll get into this more, but he believes that everyone he kills will become his slave in the afterlife.
Because he's writing letters about this.
Yes.
Okay. I was like, we don't know him, but he's writing letters letting people know. And do they have a feeling that definitely is who killed them?
Yes, because he sends in the article of clothing.
Okay, cool.
Of one of the victims.
Okay, gotcha. Continue.
Yes. This new name for the killer got around quickly. Everyone was talking about the Zodiac.
Because Jack named
Yes,
himself.
exactly. He has a lot of pieces that make me think of Jack Ripper.
Interesting.
So the new name for the killer got around quickly. Everyone's talking about the Zodiac and wondering when he'll strike again. And in September of 1969, on the 27th, two college students, 20-year-old Brian Hartnell and 22-year-old Cecilia Shepard, this one is awful. I mean, they're all awful, but
yeah.
Oh my God. They had driven out to Lake Berryessa for a picnic. And it was a beautiful day. The two of them were excited to spend time outside together.
So it's daytime?
Yeah.
Oh.
Pretty quickly, they got there because it's like kind of secluded. There's not a lot of people that go here, I guess. So pretty quickly, Cecilia noticed a man that was creeping her out. And, oh my God, what's his name? Brian was just kind of like, it's fine. Like, it's probably maybe he just wants to have a picnic too. So he's like turned around getting waters for them. And she's got her eye on this guy. She's like, I don't know about this. This is like freaking me out. And then they're sitting down trying to enjoy their view. Mm-hmm. And suddenly the Zodiac killer appears from behind a tree wearing an executioner style mask. He also had clip-on sunglasses, gloves, and military style boots. And on the front of his executioner style hood, he had a white cross circle symbol stitched over on top of his chest, and this became the symbol of the Zodiac Killer. So this is what he would like sign his letters. It's like a cross with a circle. Yeah. As the man approached them, they start screaming. They're terrified, and right away he points a gun at them and orders them to follow his directions. Then he tied them up by their hands and feet and ended up telling them that he had just escaped prison. And all he wanted was money and a car. And instead of shooting them like he had done previously, he ended up bringing out a knife and said he had to kill them. And now because he's telling them, like, I want money and a car, why do I keep forgetting his name? Brian is like, here, he had 75 cents in his pocket. He was like, you can take my money, like, take the, like, he was just like, take whatever, you know, but that's not really what he wanted. Brian begged to be killed first because he couldn't bear to see Cecilia be killed in front of him.
Oh my gosh, my heart.
He did that. But also, the way I'd be pissed if I was Cecilia, I would be like,
So I have to see you get...
sir. I'm sorry, but no. The way I would be fighting in this situation. But no.
I'd be like, how about none of us?
How about can we just not do this? Period.
So, okay.
So he did that. He stabbed him several times in the back, 6 times total. And then Cecilia was stabbed 10 times in the back and the chest.
Damn.
Before leaving the scene, the killer drew the Zodiac symbol on Brian's car with a pen and added Vallejo 12/20/68, because that's a date, and then also 7/4/69 and September 27th, 69 at 6:30 by knife. So he's like writing
down his
he's like writing out his dates, and then for this one, I guess this was kind of daytime-ish, but 6:30 at night, but it's not normal for, like, he's normally doing like 11 p.m.
Yeah, and that's also, he did it by knife. He like escalated.
So he's escalating, yeah. These are the dates for all the attacks that he made, obviously. Sadly, Cecilia did not survive the attack. She died in the hospital 2 days after, but Brian did. Oh. So he was able to give them a description of what the man looked like. He said he was about 5'11" and 170 pounds with brown slicked back hair. So a little different.
But still that brown, still around the same, I would say, kind of height. You can't really hide as weird. And then also the weight.
Right.
But he also had his hood on, so
Right.
like slick back would make sense to
Yeah,
me, I
that's
guess.
true. That's true.
Yeah.
You wouldn't see like the curly brown hair.
Interesting that now not that that's the Zodiac killers. I just think it's interesting that 2 times men have survived.
I know.
And women have not.
That's what I thought too.
It's very
interesting.
But also like, I think that maybe almost feel like he was pissed they didn't link him.
I think so.
And so now he's like,
he's like, I'll write it out for you.
Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Just like previously, the killer called in again and confessed via payphone at 7:40 that same night.
Payphones, the smell of those, I can still smell them.
Have you seen that movie, Payphone?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, it's so good. All right.
Mm-hmm.
He told the operator that he had just committed another double murder at Lake Berryessa, and the payphone was just a few blocks from the police station, but of course, by the time they arrived, he was gone. However, this time they were able to get a palm print from the phone. So that was good. Okay. Now we're getting into the final confirmed attack of the Zodiac. This is just confirmed though. So this happened in 1969. It was October 11th, and 28-year-old student Paul Stein was headed to work as a cab driver in San Francisco when he picked up someone who was heading to Presidio Heights. 10 minutes into the drive, the passenger asked Paul to pull over at a corner, and without a word, he shot him in the back of the head. And this time before leaving, he took a piece of Paul's shirt. And a witness saw him wiping the side of the cab before fleeing the scene. Likely cleaning up blood, I'm assuming.
Or his fingerprints.
Yeah, or his prints. This was a fatal injury, and when police got there, Paul was already gone. So right off the bat, there was a huge complication in this investigation because, you know.
This man's just killing.
Oh, yeah.
He's just killing a kill. Like,
yeah.
I'm just like...
Yeah.
Now we had a single man who's a cab driver, and he's now shot him again. Which, I mean, yeah, he shot before, but now it's just like opportunity that he... I'm having a hard time figuring out what his... Okay.
Now, for whatever reason, there was a mix-up with the ethnicity of the man that the cops were looking for whatever reason. The dispatcher was under the impression that the killer was a black male, when in fact he's white.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So that caused a lot of confusion at first. However, they did stop a white male who was described as walking briskly away from the scene, but this man ended up telling police that he had seen someone running away from the scene, pointed them in the direction towards the Presidio, and they took off to pursue and let the other guy go on his merry way.
No, they did not.
They sure did.
No, oh my God. Yeah. Are you kidding me?
No. Police were able to lift fingerprints from the blood in the cab, and based on reports from witnesses, they created a composite sketch of the suspect. That was the last confirmed attack, but there were still other attacks that people believe are connected to the Zodiac Killer, but they can't 100% confirm them. Paul's murder was not immediately linked to the Zodiac Killer, and the shootings and stabbings that had happened. It wasn't until days later that the San Francisco Chronicle received another letter that they realized that this was from the Zodiac Killer. The letter confesses to murdering Paul, and he claimed that he'd been wearing a disguise, making their composite sketch useless. And then the killer confessed that he was the guy who was originally stopped by the police, who was walking briskly away from the scene, and he was able to trick them into thinking that the killer had run off, and they all followed the direction. And to make his letter credible, the Zodiac Killer included a piece of Paul's shirt, and it was covered in blood.
They had
him. They had him.
Why would you just be like, oh, over there, bye? Like, why wouldn't you be like, yeah, but you're going to come with us because you're near here, you're a guy or whatever. Like, what?
I don't know.
They had him.
It was a time. It was that time.
Lord.
I just have to put out there, any of you who were college age in the 70s, congratulations for still being here.
Right?
Honestly, congratulations.
It's true. Like, bravo. Because it's a good chance that you are not going to be.
The way that these serial killers in the 70s, oh my God.
They did love the college-age children.
Oh, they sure did. They did.
Love those people. Easy pickings.
Yes. Yeah. So newspapers continued receiving letters from the Zodiac Killer for years.
Years?
Years.
But they don't have any confirmed other deaths.
No.
I put little air quotes, because...
Right. November of 1969, the Chronicle received another piece of fabric from Paul's shirt and a greeting card and a 340-character cipher called the 340 cipher. There was also a note that said deaths by July, Sept, October -7. So this seems like it may have been another clue to another count he must have killed.
Yeah.
The next day, the Chronicles received a 7-page letter.
Holy.
That also had instructions for a homemade bomb in it. A famous lawyer named Melvin Belly I know that name is I love it, was sent a Zodiac letter in December of 1969. The killer claimed that he could not stop and he wanted Melvin to help him. Interesting. In spring and summer of 1970, the San Francisco Chronicle received another 5 letters. The first one had a 13-symbol cipher and instructions for bombing a school bus.
Oh, no.
Here is a quote from that letter. School children make funny targets. I think I shall wipe out a school bus some morning. Just shoot out the front tire and then kick off the kiddies as they come bouncing out.
Oh my God. But also, why is he sending out homemade bombs if he's just going to be shooting them? Why does he keep sending instructions for homemade bombs when he's just I'm going to shoot them up?
Just really wants attention.
He does.
Bad.
And the fact that, there's no what's he doing?
I don't know. He's weird. Police took pretty extreme measures to try to protect the school kids. They would actually fly small planes behind school buses. They assigned officers and random volunteers who wanted to help keep the community safe to patrol the streets. So that's good.
That's good. That's very good.
Round of applause for the 70s. Good job.
Yeah, that's honestly, sorry.
But best police work I've heard of from the
because,
70s.
previously you just let him go away.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
Good job, though.
They had to prove their worth because they knew that they just let this man go. So now they're
they're like, okay, he's literally going to kill us.
It's we gotta get our stuff together
this
now.
is no joke.
Then in the second letter that they had gotten from the Zodiac, he demanded that the newspaper publish the bomb threats. It seemed like he was missing the thrill of terrorizing the public. And in a third letter, he marked the location of a bomb on Mount Diablo and also included another cipher. And in these letters, he also claimed that he was responsible for additional crimes. He said that he tried to kidnap a 22-year-old pregnant woman named Kathleen Jones and her baby on March 22nd of 1970. And later, they were able to confirm this pretty much because they brought Kathleen in and she was able to identify a sketch of the Zodiac man.
My God.
Yeah. And she said he did try to abduct them.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The last letter came in July, and it talked mostly about torturing his victims. He also provided some additional details about how to solve the Mount Diablo code, and in previous letters, he had talked about wanting the public and the police to wear Zodiac buttons, literal buttons with the Zodiac symbol. He wanted people to wear them around because he wanted respect.
Oh.
Yeah. This is one of the most interesting letters, I think.
Okay.
This is a quote. This is the Zodiac speaking.
Huh.
Being that you will not wear some nice Zodiac buttons, how about wearing some nasty Zodiac buttons, or any type of Zodiac buttons you can think of? If you do not wear any type of Zodiac buttons, I shall, on top of everything else, torture all 13 of my slaves that I have waiting for me in paradise. Some I shall tie over anthills and watch them scream and twitch and squirm. Others shall have pine splinters driven under their nails and then burned. Others shall be placed in cages and fed salt and beef until they are gorged, and then I shall listen to their pleas for water, and I shall laugh at them.
Wow.
Others will hang by their thumbs and burn.
Oh.
End quote.
Oh.
Yeah.
He's
a...
I mean,
Not
that's
okay.
an imagination for how base his kills were.
Yeah. Again.
Like, that's an imagination for the people that he's going to torture after he...
Yes. Yes.
But
for his slaves that he is waiting for him in paradise.
So what is it? Is he a coward in person? Like, he can't pull all that off? Like, that's my question.
Yeah, probably.
Like, I mean, he just had such quick kills.
Yeah.
To have that kind of thought about, like, what I'm going to do.
Right.
He wants them to wear any kind of Zodiac.
Yes.
Nasty or not.
A nasty Zodiac button, or any kind of Zodiac button
nice.
you can think of.
Just whatever you need to put on.
Nasty or nice, or just any kind. Just it has to
Take
have...
them by their thumbs and
burn. I'm going to feed them salt and beef until they're gorged. Very strange.
That is wow.
Strange. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's like, it's hard. Like, it's not like, I know this man's killed, but it's like hard for me to feel afraid of him when he writes things like that. Like, Jack the Ripper, even Jack the Ripper, because I don't think he wrote the one that was like, Dear Boss or whatever it was.
No.
Like, the things he said, I was like, well, that's weird, but like that, I'd be like, oh, all right.
A very strange.
It's giving...
I don't know what it's giving. It's giving mentally... I don't know.
I'm sorry, but
Something.
being that time, it's giving weird kid in a class. Like, that's what it's giving.
Yeah.
No offense.
Not the good weird kind.
No.
The kind that you're like, you're going to kill someone.
Yeah. That's what it's giving.
Yeah.
Like, someone that you're like, I need to keep my eye on you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I could imagine him being the type of person that would walk up to, like, say you in class and be like, read my book. And then it would be all full of stuff. And you'd be like, oh, that's weird. You wouldn't. Do anything.
I would think it, but I would be like, wow, what an imagination.
Which good for you.
Yeah.
You all should always do that with
always.
the people that have
Because
that.
guess what? When you tell them off, you're going to be the first one on their hit list.
Support.
All right.
Just be like, this is awesome, and hand it back, and then report.
Wow, what an imagination.
Report. That's
support and report.
Support and report. But that is
anonymously.
Yeah, anonymously. That's bizarro. That he had such quick kills, but then in his mind, he's got plans.
Weird. Real weird. So the Department of Justice launched a Zodiac task force and launched in which included detectives from multiple departments. There was early speculation that the Manson family might be involved in the Zodiac killing. This was ruled out, but many people out there have continued to link the case to this day. A lot of people think the Manson family was the serial killer, but really, there's just no evidence for it. So people are just thinking, oh, it's the Times, the Manson, you know what I mean? So
yeah, okay.
But there's no...
I was going to say, that makes sense because, but there's also, as I said, there was literally like 3 serial killers happening at the same time.
Right.
As the Golden State Killer.
Oh my God. That's another one.
I know, but I'm saying like, there was just a plethora of during this time.
Oh, yeah.
So many.
In October of 1970, 2 more letters from the Zodiac Killer arrived, and the second one was a Halloween card sent to a reporter for the Chronicle named Paul Avery. And it said, quote, "I feel it in my bones. You ache to know my name, and so I'll clue you in," end quote. Also, the word paradise was going down the sides of the card, and the word slaves was going across the card. And it also said, quote, "by gun, by rope, by knife, and by fire" on it. I don't know. It was very strange.
Oh.
The final one just said, "Sorry, no cipher. Sorry, no cipher." That's it. Literally don't know. In March of 1971, a letter sent to the LA Times claimed that the Zodiac killed 18-year-old college student Sherry Josephine Bates on October 30th. Sherry's body was found between 2 houses very close to the library that she was studying at in Riverside College.
No Riverside.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
And on the scene, detectives found a print from a military-style boot and also a Timex watch. And there were also hairs found in Sherry's palm, likely from trying to fight the killer off. A month before Sherry's body was found, a local newspaper received a type letter from the alleged killer and said, quote, Miss Bates was stupid. She went to the slaughter like a lamb, and I am not sick. I am insane. End quote. It's like, sir, I think that's the same thing.
At least he knows.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
In April of 1967, the killer sent 2 identical handwritten letters to the paper, to the local police, and to Sherry Joe's father saying, quote, Bates had to die. There will be more, end quote. And these letters were signed with a Z at the end.
Okay.
Which is not normal. Normally it's
usually the little
the cross with the circle. Then more possible victims were mentioned in a letter that were sent to the LA Times and another letter that was sent to Paul Avery in spring of 71. This one said, quote, This is the Zodiac speaking. I love how he always starts him off like that. Like I have always said, I am crack proof. If the blue meanies are ever going to catch me, they had best get off their fat asses and do something, because the longer they fiddle around, the more slaves I will collect for my afterlife. I do have to give them credit for stumbling across my Riverside activity, but they're only finding the easy ones. There are a hell of a lot more out there. And this letter was signed with the Zodiac symbol that is normally used. Investigators believe that one of the victims that he was talking about actually could have been 25-year-old Donna Lass. She was a woman who disappeared from Lake Tahoe on September 6th of 1970. Donna was a nurse who worked at the hospital just a few miles from where Paul Stein, the cab driver, was shot dead. After she disappeared, a man called her landlord and boss and said that she had a family emergency and had to leave town. Police later found her abandoned car, but Donna was never seen again. In August of 1973, another letter was sent to the Times and the Albany Times-Union newspaper. And this letter threatened to kill once again. He also claimed that the cipher he included was revealed and named the exact location of his victim. He said, quote, You were wrong. I am not dead or in the hospital. I am alive and well, and I'm going to start killing again. Below is the name and location of my next victim, but you better hurry because I'm going to kill her August 10th at 5 p.m. when the shifts change, end quote. FBI cryptologist decoded the cipher and released the message partially redacted and said, quote, Albany Medical Center, this is only the beginning, end quote. So that's what they figured out once they deciphered this code. That's what it said. So that must be the location. Then the Chronicles received 4 more letters in 1974 that claimed the Zodiac had 37 total victims and referenced the abduction of Patty Hearst. The last letter was signed by the Red Phantom, which was something they hadn't seen before. So 2 more potential victims of the Zodiac Killer were newly engaged high school students Robert Domingos and Linda Edwards. The 2 of them had driven to Gaviota State Park on June 4th of 1963 for their senior ditch day. Oh. But the 2 of them never came back home. That day, Robert's father went out to search for them, and he found them. Their bodies were left in a shack on the beach. They'd been bound, and they'd been shot multiple times. It seems that the killer had shot them outside of the shack, then dragged them in. And it looks like the killer potentially wanted to set the shack on fire, but failed to do that. Don't know. And
they don't think that is that's very much something he would do. And exactly. He also wrote it. So that doesn't make sense why they don't just say confirmed.
I would agree with you on that. It wasn't until 1972 that detectives determined that Robert and Linda were killed also by a .22 caliber weapon and Winchester Western Super X ammunition.
Oh, there we go.
Which is the same as previously.
Confirmed.
Just like Betty Lou and David in the Lake Herman murders. And one of the letters that came in 1971 to the LA Times, the Zodiac had taken credit for the murder of Sherry Jo Bates in 1966. And at the time of the murder, the prime suspect was a campus library worker who was named Ross Sullivan. Oh my God, where was I? Okay. This was mainly because, a lot like the composite sketch, but police were able to eventually confirm his alibi, and he ruled him out. But he wore the same type of military boots as
the print.
Yeah, as the print that was found at the scene.
Oh.
Yeah. That the killer was wearing during the Lake Berryessa, the ones where he was in the executioner style. Plus, many people pointed out that he was just an odd guy and would make them feel uncomfortable. Also, he'd been diagnosed with bipolar and schizophrenia.
Oh.
And had been in and out of mental institutions for a couple of years. He also wrote about some very dark poetry and carved a poem about a violent attack of a woman into a library desk. Yeah, so. Plus, just days after Sherry Joe was killed, Ross just disappeared. His coworker never saw him again, and then he died in 1977.
That's when I was born. What?
It's weird. I don't know. Yeah, I know. Another theory, which was presented by Robert Graysmith, who was the author of Zodiac, believed, along with many other people, that Arthur Lee Allen was actually the Zodiac Killer. He was actually the only person ever named as an official suspect.
Oh.
It turns out that back on September 27th of 1969, Arthur, who was 36 at the time, told his family he was going to go scuba diving at Lake Berryessa. And this was the exact same day that Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were attacked by the hooded man. And apparently, when Arthur got home that day, his clothes were covered in blood.
Okay.
And he also had a bloody knife in his car.
Oh, all right.
Remember, the attacks at Lake Berryessa were the ones where he used a knife. So he was questioned by the police, and he ended up telling them that he wasn't scuba diving in the lake, that he went scuba diving in the ocean. And he had an explanation for the blood, too. He said that his friends and I just decided to cut up a chicken and barbecue it for lunch.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
You don't just cut up a chicken and get blood all over you for lunch.
Yep. They also learned that Arthur was a gun enthusiast who owned a .22 caliber rifle. Plus, they ended up finding out that he wore a Zodiac brand watch, which they just found interesting. Also, he was very smart. He had a really high IQ. And he used to be a teacher before he was fired for sexual misconduct.
Oh.
2 years after the attack at Lake Berryessa, a man named Don Chaney came forth with more information. He claimed to be a friend of Arthur's. Don claimed that Arthur actually knew Darlene Theron, the one who was killed at the Blue Rock Springs Park attack. He also told them that Arthur had nicknamed himself Zodiac long before the killer started writing that that's what he wanted to be called. Don also said that Arthur had told him about some plans for a novel he wanted to write, and apparently this novel is going to be about a character who hunts and kills people using a gun and a flashlight. Another really interesting thing about Arthur is he was ambidextrous, which means you can write with both hands. So this could explain the handwriting always looking so different from one letter to the next.
Oh.
He could have been consistently disguising his own handwriting. Detectives ended up bringing Arthur in again and questioning him. And this time he told him about his favorite novel, which was called The Most Dangerous Game, which is about a man who hunts people.
Yep, I was going to say this is also a movie.
Mm-hmm. A couple in California were actually even able to decipher the cipher.
Oh.
One of the ciphers sent in by the Zodiac, and it turns out it was actually included the phrases wild game and the most dangerous, which brings back to the book, The Most Dangerous Game. The full decoding of the cipher actually said, quote, "I like killing people because it's so much fun. It's more fun than killing wild game in the forest because the man is the most dangerous animal of all to kill. Something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl," end quote. So at this point, investigators got a warrant to search Arthur's home, and it was creepy. They ended up finding several bloody knives. They also found several dissected dead animals in his freezer.
Hello.
And also they found some odd sexual devices. However, they tried to do handwriting samples and they couldn't match his handwriting with his right hand or his left hand to any of the letters.
Huh?
Yeah. Plus, remember, they found his fingerprints in the palm print from the payphone.
But that could have been...
it didn't match. Yeah.
No! How can that be?
I don't know.
Why would you... I mean, come on. He's got cut up animals.
I know.
And he's creepy.
Hey, there's a lot of freaks. All right? There's a lot of freaks out there.
That's true.
So at this point, there was no concrete evidence linking Arthur to the murders, but it's very interesting to note that back in 1974, when Arthur was in prison for child molestation, the Zodiac didn't send out any letters during that time. So the last letter that was sent from the Zodiac came on May 2nd of 78, and this was several months after Arthur's release. And the letter said, quote, "This is the Zodiac speaking. You people are in for a treat. The next 3 weeks, we're finally going to have something good to report. I have decided to begin killing again. Please hold the applause. Nothing is going to happen until I do. You people just won't let me have it any other way. I plan to kill 5 people in the next 3 weeks." End quote. And then he mentions the people that he wants to kill.
What?
Yeah, it's, quote, Chief Piggy Darrell.
Oh, no.
Yep, Chief Piggy Darrell Gates, ex-Chief Piggy Ed Davis, and 3 Pat Boone. His theatrical crap is an obscenity to the rest of the world. Also, Eldridge Cleaver. And then he gets racist in his quote.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
Well,
he says...
he's a bad person.
Yes. Quote, "These N-words gotta get their 20% quota after all, and Susan Atkins, the Judas of the dancing, she's gonna get hers now." Hey, you actors, this is your lucky break.
It's not funny.
Remember, whoever plays me has his work cut out for him. See you in the news, end quote. And he signs it with the original Zodiac symbol. Jumping forward quite a bit here, in 1991, police informant ended up claiming that back in 1969, Arthur had worked as a security guard at a strip club, and he bragged about killing a cab driver, Paul Stein, in San Francisco. Witnesses to Paul Stein's murder didn't identify Arthur as the killer, but Michael from the Blue Rock Springs Park attack actually saw the killer's face when he went in and picked Arthur out on a lineup immediately. Immediately saw Arthur and was like, that's him. So authorities decided to search Arthur's home again. And this time, they discovered homemade bombs and instructions that looked very similar to the ones of the Zodiac.
Okay.
That he'd written several times. So Arthur ended up dying from a massive heart attack in 1992. And at this time, they took samples of DNA for future testing. In 2000, Detective Kelly Carroll and forensic document examiner Susan Morton started working to create a DNA profile for the Zodiac Killer using the letters and envelopes and the stamps. By 2002, they had partial DNA profile. This is helpful to some extent. It can be used to rule people out, but it can't be used to fully identify the killer.
Yeah.
And turns out Arthur's DNA did not match the profile.
What?
Yep.
Are you kidding me?
So once again was ruled out as a suspect.
Do you think that the actual killer was like casing Arthur too? Because the fact that Arthur was in jail and he really had an issue with cops.
Yeah, it's possible. But also remember, all of these letters are public. You know what I mean? So like, it's possible that he was like inspired by this letter and had those bombs in his house.
True.
You know what I mean?
But also just bizarre that my whole part that's bizarre is that the letter stopped while Arthur was in jail.
And it's possible he could have been like casing him out and being like, okay, I'm just going to like make it seem like this guy.
Yeah. I mean, because like, but he also,
I know.
Crazy.
Another potential.
This was like a roller coaster because I'm like, yes. And
I know.
But I'm like, yes. And then you're like, and I'm like, no.
This is a common theme with all of the suspects. Another person who was a suspect, was Donald Lee Bujic. He had been released from prison just days before the Lake Berryessa attack, and he had been in jail for 11 years for killing a sheriff deputy. Plus, if you remember, Brian Hartnell had told police that the killer had just told him that he had just got out of prison. Also, Donald's former cellmates said that he talked to him about killing people. Specifically, he talked to him about killing people so that he could have slaves in the afterlife.
Well, okay.
Which seems to be a belief that the Zodiac Killer had. As it
did. Yeah, it did.
One may say.
There was that one letter or of them. Yep.
In one of the letters, it said, quote, "The best part of it is when I die, I will be reborn in paradise, and all the lone or stray people I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name because you're trying to slow down or stop my collection of slaves before my afterlife." End quote. So this is pretty interesting connection if the cellmate is telling the truth. Also, turns out Donald has served in the Army at Fort Ord in California, which has a helicopter pad and looks just like the symbol that the Zodiac uses, which is interesting.
And he had military boots, too.
Yes. However, again, his prints didn't match the prints that were pulled from the crime scene, so he was ruled out.
That's why I'm not getting excited when you say
just don't even get excited.
I'm just going to be like,
Another potential suspect was Lawrence King. He was actually a victim of a traumatic brain injury, and the investigator named Harvey Hines believed after the car accident, it really shook him up, and he ended up becoming the Zodiac Killer. Harvey also believed that Lawrence's name had appeared in one of the Zodiac's coded messages. After his brain injury, his behavior became really erratic, and this is common with traumatic brain injuries, you know. People said that he seemed to be really losing it, or losing control of his emotions, and was just acting unusual. They said he just seemed like a different person, and he was also known for hating women.
Yeah, but this guy,
he was doing both.
Men
but
and women.
Maybe he hated women because he couldn't get them and was annoyed that these other men were sleeping with them because they were always at like a lover's lane.
Yeah, but he specifically killed the taxi driver on his own.
That's true.
And this guy is very erratic, but he's also not erratic at the same time. Like, otherwise, I feel like he would have been caught.
Yeah, like, it wouldn't take like 6 month hiatuses.
No, and he took 6 months.
Unless,
and he also was very upset. I don't know. Someone with a traumatic brain injury just can't have
I don't
think thoughts.
No. He'd been arrested twice in the 60s for prowling. Plus, he operated under multiple aliases, just like the Zodiac claimed in one of his letters, that he often wore disguises. Plus, it turns out that he had learned to write encrypted messages when he was serving for the Naval Reserve. Also, Darlene Farron's sister said that she believed he knew Darlene as well. She claimed that he would come into the restaurant that her sister worked at and would bother her all of the time. She believed that he may have been stalking her. He was also linked to the other suspect Zodiac killings. Turns out he worked at the same building as Donna Lass, who disappeared from Lake Tahoe in 1970. And he was also positively identified by Kathleen as the man who tried to kidnap her and her baby. Remember the pregnant lady that...
This is the Donald guy? This is the brain injury guy?
Yes.
Okay.
Plus, one of the officers was on the scene about the Paul Stein shooting, the cab driver, and that he looked like the man that told them that the killer had run down the street. So that's interesting, especially because the Zodiac Killer said, "Hey, I'm the man that you were talking to."
Yeah, that's very interesting.
But nothing turned out from that one, just like all the other.
Just nothing? There was not even like any concrete like...
No. And then there's people who think that their parents... A lot of people who thought their parents were. In 2007, Denise Kaufman accused his stepfather, Jack Terrence, of being the Zodiac Killer. And Jack had died the year before Dennis was pretty sure of this and gave police samples of his dad's handwriting and also turned in a bloody knife that he found with a hooded garment just like the one worn at the Berryessa attack. Plus, it turns out that Jack did have military boots from his time in the Navy and the Air Force. Why are there so many people with bloody knives? And like, why do so many people have that? You know,
why don't you wash your knives?
Like, why do you have that?
I know, it's crazy. Like, wash your knives, okay? Like,
so when he brought all of this to the police, investigators disagreed that the hood or the handwriting matched. They did forensic testing on the knife, and they couldn't trace it back to any victims. So he's ruled out. 2009, Deborah Perez.
God.
Oh, it doesn't stop. Deborah Perez accused her father of being the Zodiac at a press conference, and she said that she was watching an episode of America's Most Wanted in 2007. And that's when she saw a composite sketch for the first time and realized that's her father. She said she was watching, she had like a flood of memories come back from when she was a child, and actually claimed that she had witnessed one of the Zodiac killings when she was 7 years old. And also that her father had forced her to write some of the letters that were sent to the police and media, and she also had a pair of sunglasses that allegedly belonged to Paul Stein, the cab driver. But none of her claims were ever proven, and she never released photos of her father, so people can compare it to the composite sketch, and that just fizzled out. Many people over the years have tried to decipher some of the codes that the Zodiac wrote in. A teacher and his wife actually solved one of them, which was the 408 cipher. And they did this in 1969, but the code wouldn't be cracked for decades. Recently, 2020, the 340 cipher was decoded on December 3rd by 3 people, an American software developer named David Warentek, a Bulgarian computer programmer and warehouse operator named Jarl Van Eck, and an Australian applied mathematician named Sam Blake. David, the software developer, had been trying to decode the cipher since 2006.
Wow.
And Gerald, I love that name. The computer programmer designed a code-breaking app to crack the code finally. They sent in their decoded messages to the FBI and San Francisco Police Department, and later confirmed that 3 men, in fact, cracked the code, and that it said, quote, "I hope you're having lots of fun trying to catch me. That wasn't me on TV show." Which brings up a good point about me. I'm not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise sooner. Because I know I have lots of slaves to work for me where everyone else has nothing when they reach paradise. So they're afraid of death. I'm not afraid because I know my new life will be an easy one in death. End quote.
That sounds very much like what he would say.
Yes. Yeah. The most recent claim and last claim was October 6th of 2021. It actually came from a group called Case Breakers, who released a legendary and very complicated press release claiming that they had solved the Zodiac murder. The Case Breakers are an independent national task force of 40-plus cold case investigators with backgrounds in law enforcement, military intelligence, forensic analysis, academics, and journalism. And this group came right out of nowhere and said that they had identified the serial killer and said his name was Gary Francis Post. Yeah, they literally made like posts about like this was everything.
What?
Yeah, claiming that they had solved the case.
How about get it checked first?
Their press release was picked up by Fox News, TMZ, and on headlines all around the world, trending on Twitter. Many of the articles and the way that they were written led people to believe that the Zodiac Killer was finally identified, but Case Breakers actually had no connection whatsoever to the actual investigation.
My good Lord. Okay.
But let's just talk about Gary just a little bit. He was born in New York on November 8th, 1937. He served in the U.S. Air Force and later worked as a house painter in Groveland, California, where he married and had at least one son. And on February 22nd of 2016, he was arrested for a domestic battery. This was against his wife at the time, Mary, and at this point, he was 78 years old.
My God. About
a year later, he was sent to a state-run nursing facility and diagnosed with dementia. So he ended up being deemed incompetent to stand trial. And for that, of course, people and the media were quick to point out the similar features between Gary and the composite sketch. They had similar, like, scars, I guess. But also, like, they were talking about his, like, lines, like, wrinkles. Like, everybody kind of has that. So
yeah.
That's kind of dumb. The Case Breakers team also said that their years of digging has uncovered new forensic evidence and photos of Gary's darkroom. And one image features scars on the forehead of Gary that matches scars on the composite sketch. Yeah. But nothing insanely overwhelmingly similar. In 2017, a journalist named Dale Julin claimed that he had sworn statements from a man who had heard Gary's confession that he was the Zodiac Killer. And this man also claimed that Gary had threatened his life twice. Also, 2 former cellmates of Gary said he had confessed to them and also threatened their lives. Dale filed affidavits to get sworn testaments, but the information in the affidavits couldn't be verified, so he was not able to do so. The case was actually brought to Case Breakers by one of their team members named Jen Muchels, and she brought it to them after she read Dale Julian's copyright book manuscript, which argued that Gary was the fittest killer. Details won't be available till the book is released, but Jen said that she was won over by Dale's decoding of the Zodiac letters using Gary's full name. A lot of people have been confused about why this made mainstream news, which this was a big deal because the Code Breakers press release didn't include any hard evidence.
Oh, okay.
Tom Boyd, who runs ZodiacKiller.com, called the group's claims hot garbage and complete bogus.
Hot garbage.
Some media outlets have characterized the release as a publicity stunt, but almost all of the coverage that came out initially was published with the headline that implied he had been identified. Investigators say to this day they still get at least 3 to 4 tips a week about the Zodiac Killer, sometimes more. But they have pretty much shut down the claim from the Case Breakers, and San Francisco Police Department and San Francisco FBI have confirmed that this case is not solved and that their investigation continues and remains open. Done.
My God.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and take it all the way back, okay?
Okay.
All the way back to one of his murders. Mm-hmm. They fucking had him.
Yep, I know. Oh, so much of this.
We wouldn't have paragraphs and paragraphs.
Nope, we sure wouldn't.
Of who done it.
No. It could have just been
They fucking had him. A man walking briskly from the scene. And he said, oh no, that way. And they're like, okay.
Yeah.
Let's go that way.
Yeah.
No, I would have held on to the man saying, oh no, that way. Mm-hmm. And confirmed. Mm-hmm. So that's just
thank you.
Frustrating.
I know.
Because I'm like, here are all these people. Like, by the way, like, it's so funny, like, how much parents, I want you to take note. Like, if you're a crappy person, one day you're going to be accused of being infamous serial killer. Because think about Jack the Ripper. How many people came in and were like, it was my grandpa. It was.
Oh my God.
Like,
yeah.
Because they're like, I know it was him or whatever.
So
like,
parents, don't be hiding bloody knives.
And don't be an asshole and don't be weird or crazy. Like, watch out. You're going to be deemed as a serial killer.
I mean,
like,
honestly, those parents very well could be serial killers too. Who knows?
Oh, Alyssa.
Yeah.
This case. Oh my God.
I'm apologizing after the fact because it was a long one and it's a weird. It's just weird.
It's just frustrating.
Frustrating.
Because
weird.
they had him.
So many things, so many suspects that are non-suspects that fit the criteria, but then also don't match the evidence. Yeah.
And then I'm going to take it back to was it Arthur?
Yeah.
Who
the main
match
one.
The, you know, I just think that maybe they weren't really great at understanding the.
I think so too.
You know, maybe that what, you know, saying, oh, it doesn't match. Like, I don't know. To me, he sticks out the most for me.
I know. Well, he was the one that was like
cutting
actually
the chicken.
Yeah, right.
Like, come on now.
And just
had
barbecuing chickens.
Yeah. And okay, maybe just put him in jail for it because he dismembered animals. That's all I'm saying. Like, maybe just be like, okay, yeah, you did it just because we need to get you put away, and then keep looking for the actual. I think it was him. I'm going to say it was him. I also am going to say you fucking had him. If you're still alive, cops who did that, you fucking had him.
Right.
And he literally just said over there, and you were like an ADD person and said squirrel.
Yep.
And went that way.
It's crazy.
It's insane. That was a long one.
It was so long.
Also, like, he's just another one that's like so infuriating because he's like that kind of like thinks he's so good.
Oh, I know.
I can't. Like, I know that a lot of serial killers are like that, but oh my God, when they're just like, ha ha.
Oh my God.
I'm going to have all the slaves. Yeah. But,
wear my Zodiac buttons.
Yeah. Either nasty or good. Like, it's so dumb.
I'm also just, again, I know it's a long one, but also, I'm sorry. My brain is like bing bonging around. It's been a week. Also, my dogs are being freaking nuts.
We all have those nights.
You hear any chewing, licking, barking, I'm sorry.
I was feeding them treats as she was talking to try to keep them happy, but instead it made them jump up on my lap pretty much and go.
So this was a struggle to get through.
It's okay. It's real life. It's real.
Yes.
We're real. We're not, we don't have everything staged. We're
Right.
real, live,
Yes.
in time. No,
100
on time,
yeah.
in time, in live.
Something. It's something.
It's been a week.
Yeah.
We always say that. Not always. We actually been really good and on it. It's just that this week,
Oh my God.
y'all,
It took
I'm
us for
so
a
ready for life just to be cool. I'm riding it.
Yes.
I'm doing it.
Yes.
Yeah. That was a long one and
Yeah.
a frustrating one and really, really frustrating. Next week, it's not so crazy.
Okay.
It's not so
very
crazy,
glad.
but it definitely is an interesting one. And it's I'm not, we're going to find out. It's one of our listeners have asked for this person.
Is this the one that they were like related? Not related,
no.
but had a correlation to their family?
But not in a good way.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
so
that'll
he's
be
coming
fun.
next week.
Thank you so much for listening. Please
Thank
remember
you.
to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you in the next one.
Bye, guys.
Bye.